What's going on, everyone? So I did a video on the reports of the proposed trade for a Austin Reaves and Jaden McDaniels swap. And it was Austin Reaves and Jared Vanderbilt for Jaden McDaniels as well as Joe Ingles. I don't like the idea of Joe Ingles. He's kind of just salary filler, but I try to get, kind of a younger piece, development guy. Went over a couple options in that video. Go check out that video after this video. But I'd love to get Jaden McDaniels. He would be fantastic. But there was another proposal that was attached that was along the same idea, along the same lines. And the idea was to do Trey Murphy for Austin Reaves and Jared Vanderbilt. So instead of adding, like a salary filler, it would just be those two, Austin Reaves and Jared Vanderbilt, straight up for Trey Murphy. Now, when you're comparing the two trades, I would rather have Trey Murphy. Now, Jaden McDaniels is one of, if not the premier, 3-and-D guys in the league. He's unbelievable, right? He's one of the best defensive and versatile defensive players. He's got 6'9" size, and he's got the length and the wingspan, defensive versatility, can slot in basically 2 through 4 for you. But Trey Murphy, I just think, is a guy that has shown the offensive versatility sides of things. They are similar in age, so it's not like one of those things where one guy is 2 or 3 years younger, but Trey Murphy gives you the defense. He's a very good defensive player, but he's also a better offensive player, right? I mean, last season he really kind of just skyrocketed with 21.5 points, 5 rebounds, and 3.5 assists on 45.4% shooting. I'll go more into the stats here in a little bit, but to me, if I could have Trey Murphy or Jaden McDaniels, personally, rather have Trey Murphy, his versatility at the 4 or the 5. Plus, I just think he'd be a better offensive threat slotted alongside Luka Doncic. I think, one of the big questions, right? And one of the arguments to not get rid of Austin Reaves is Luka Doncic has done really well playing alongside guys, or at least a guy, that can self-create and create a little bit for others. He doesn't necessarily have to be this high-end playmaker, but somebody that can do and have that balance, that can go and get you, buckets, but also still make the occasional play, so Luka doesn't have to do everything all the time, all day, all night. Where Jaden McDaniels, yes, he's starting to kind of come into his own a little bit offensively, but I just think Trey Murphy's closer and he's just already there. And I just think he'd be better in that role as that just kind of bucket getter, kind of swing man, kind of run that point forward type of guy. He's not like the playmaker that Austin Reaves is, but I just think he'd be more versatile, a little more dynamic, and he wouldn't be as reliant on Luka Doncic as I think a Jaden McDaniels would be. So to me, I would prefer Trey Murphy because I just think the ceiling for this Lakers team would be higher with Trey Murphy over Jaden McDaniels. I don't really think you could go wrong with either of them. I just like Trey Murphy and what he could potentially bring, slot in right now at the 3, and then in a post-LeBron era, you could slide him over to the 4 if that's the route you want to go, or if you end up getting another piece or whatever, you can slot in that guy. Maybe have Jake LaRavia be your 3 and a Trey Murphy be your 4 if Jake LaRavia kind of works out and whatnot. And then you kind of go with the defensive versatility, or if Jake LaRavia, we saw him kind of play the 2 spot, maybe he's the guy slotting in at the 2 spot for you, and you kind of going with that size and have, you're the smallest player on your basketball court, be a Luka Doncic. Maybe you go something if an Adu Thero can evolve into that type of player. Maybe you're going something with a Luka, Jake LaRavia, Adu Thero, Trey Murphy, and DeAndre Ayton. I mean, that's a starting 5 that has athleticism, defense, versatility, length, shooting, you name it. I just think that's a starting 5 that could end up being one of, if not the best in all of basketball. And just to me, Trey Murphy would give you a little more self-creation, give you a little better shot making, while still being able to play off ball and playing alongside a Luka Doncic, and then you just kind of solving another wing spot or the 2 guard spot or whatever. I just think the Lakers would be fine in that regard. Worst case scenario, you got Trey Murphy, probably DeAndre Ayton and Luka Doncic as your core foundation for the next 8 to 10 years. And then you're just kind of piecing in and filling in the rest of the gaps, right? Like I said, maybe a Jake LaRavia hits or an Adu Thero. Maybe it's, one of these guys on the G League, like Arthur Kaluma or something like that, right? Maybe one of these other guys end up stepping up for you. Regardless, Trey Murphy is the guy that I'd really kind of lean into heavily. I'd even try to see, right? what is the value, right? So like in the Minnesota article, talking about the Jaden McDaniels trade, there was talks about Jaden McDaniels might not have the level of value of Austin Reaves, and so it might not be an even enough trade. Again, this wasn't from the Lakers side. This wasn't like a Laker guy talking about this. So if that's true and Minnesota has that same kind of view, right? Like, could you get assets on top of that? Could you get like Jaden McDaniels, a young player plus a first? Right? Like if that's happening, then yeah, I'd probably lean towards Jaden McDaniels just because you could use that first plus assets and stuff to now go get another piece or two. But Trey Murphy, what if the Lakers can kind of have like slightly higher value with Austin Reaves, maybe you can work something out to also get a Herb Jones. If you get a Herb Jones and Trey Murphy, I think the Lakers are set, right? Because you'd have at worst, you'd have Luka Doncic, Herb Jones, Trey Murphy, and DeAndre Ayton as 4 of your starting 5 for the next 8-10 years, and Trey Murphy and Herb Jones are locked up for the next 4. So like you're good, you're settled, you're fine, and they're guys that would have value. I would try to, if you could get Trey Murphy, if they really wanted like an Austin Reaves, you get a Trey Murphy, I'd try to get a Herb Jones also. I'd even be willing to give up the first and whatever you have. I'd sell the farm if I could get both. Honestly, that's just me. Maybe you feel otherwise. Again, let me know down in the comments. But me personally, if you told me we could have Luka Doncic, Herb Jones, Trey Murphy, and DeAndre Ayton, and then if Jake LaRavia or Dude there or one of these guys end up hitting, and that's our 5 for the next, like I said, 8 to 10 years, I mean, we're one of the best teams in all of basketball, in my opinion. Maybe the best team in all of basketball for the next handful of years, right? Like to me, that would be the kind of ideal scenario. I don't know, again, if the Pelicans would be willing to trade both, but there are kind of questions about Herb Jones as well as like kind of Trey Murphy. I would trade Austin Reaves for Herb Jones. I'd want a little more. Like, again, I kind of look at it like, could you get a Herb Jones plus an asset or like a young player or something? But also, Herb Jones, I just think would be the better fit. He's much better defensively. He's another kind of top-end, high-end defensive guy who's really kind of built a career and built a name for himself on the defensive end. So, like, if you couldn't get Trey Murphy, if you could somehow get a Herb Jones, I wouldn't hate that. Like, it might be, you could argue it's kind of a step down from a Trey Murphy, but Herb Jones, I still think would be fantastic. And again, gives you that starting 3, or you could slot him in at your 2 if you want to, basically 2-3 guy for, again, the next handful of years. Maybe you can get a young player or something like that to add to the core that you can kind of grow and develop. You're seeing the Lakers really kind of stack up on young talent, players for the G League and 2-ways and all of that stuff. So maybe you could work something like that out. And the Lakers, again, could be very good for the foreseeable future. My only thing, like with the Pelican situation, right, is like, do the Pelicans really want, because, okay, one, what are they going to do with Zion? Right, that's the question. Because that's the thing. It's like they got Trey Murphy, and he really kind of came in his own. They got Zion Williamson. They really could use center. Right? Yes, they got Messi. Maybe you could get him. Right? They got Queen, who maybe he's the guy that they kind of really high on. So maybe you get a Missy and a Herb Jones and do like a Rui and Austin Reaves type trade, something like that. But my thing is like, they have several young guys that already they're kind of building on as far as like the playmakers on this team. Like, I don't know how much sense, like if they didn't trade for Jordan Poole, I think it would make more sense. And this was something that was even in the article. It was like, it basically said that almost verbatim the same thing, like that, if they hadn't went and got Jordan Poole, this trade might make more sense. But their argument was like, if they could land Austin Reaves, it would be too good to pass up. You kind of figure out the Jordan Poole situation. Jordan Poole has to come off the bench. He comes off the bench. Maybe you're starting Austin Reaves and Jordan Poole, whatever. But then they also have, Jeremiah Fears, who they just got, who they're really high on. DeJounte Murray they still have. He's coming off an Achilles, but still, he's a guy that, if he can kind of get back to being the guy that he is, like, there's questions of like, how much does Austin Reaves make sense for the Pelicans is my question. If you can pull this off and you can solve this, then I would, right? The Pelicans might look at it as like, we have a real jam kind of at the forward spots. You know, we're paying a bunch of guys money in the forward spots. Let's go get Austin Reaves. He can kind of be that guy. Maybe we could trade a DeJounte Murray. Maybe we could trade, you know, Jordan Poole at some point, or kind of let Jordan Poole ride out until Fears kind of comes into his zone. And then once he comes into his zone, then, you know, maybe you could go Austin Reaves and Fears and kind of, you know, you never know what another team is thinking, what their plans are, how they perceive certain things, like what direction do they, like, there's a lot that goes into it, right? There's a lot of kind of question marks on, like, you know, and look, for being honest, the Pelicans haven't been the, like, best, you know, decision-making team in the league. So, yeah, teams make, like, just questionable trades and decision-making. I mean, Lakers got Luka Doncic. Everyone was like, what? Like, everyone thought, the whole world thought it was fake, that Shams got hacked or something, because no one believed that they would trade Luka Doncic. I mean, to think that Trey Murphy could end up getting traded, or a Herb Jones could end up getting traded for an Austin Reaves, even though it kind of like is like, does that really make sense for the Pelicans? Like, I just don't, I think that would be far less surprising than the Lakers trading for like a Luka Doncic or something like that, or even some of these other, like a Pau Gasol trade, like some of the trades that the Lakers have gotten over the years. So, no, but to me, it's like, if you can, I like Austin Reaves. I don't hate Austin Reaves. I just worry about the redundancy, and I worry about just kind of all the other holes and things you have to solve. Plus, you're going to have to pay Austin Reaves, you know, 35 plus million, where Herb Jones and Trey Murphy are both so much cheaper. Right, like Herb Jones is making, you know, I think it's like 24 million. Same thing with like Trey Murphy. You're saving 10 million a year by doing this type of trade. So not only are you getting a better position of need that you need to solve, right, but you're also clearing salary space in order to make other moves in the offseason and whatnot, rather than overpaying Austin Reaves. It's just kind of one of those things. But anyways, always, this is a discussion. I pass a question on you. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments. That being said, if you haven't liked this video, hit that like button. Helps me out. So we enjoy these types of videos, and I truly appreciate it. Not subscribe channel, hit that subscribe button, turn on the bell notifications. Appreciate y'all. See you in the next one.